Hello and welcome to the Slingshot channel, or today the Kukri channel. Yes, this episode is all about Kukris because I just received another fine specimen of that great knife. And it comes directly from out of Nepal. I got this from the Himalayan Blades company. And this is actually, I was able to really configure this myself. So this is the biggest one of my collection. Look at that beauty. Look at that. It is extremely big, but on the other hand, because of all these fullers here, it is not too heavy. It's actually a very agile and quick blade, and it's sharp as hell. Sorry, it's sharp as a sharp knife should be. And I just love it. It comes with the entire package, and I will present it to you in greater detail later in this video. But first, I want to take the time and tell you the story of the Kukri knife and the Gurkha soldiers. Here we go. Now, first of all, the Kukri basically was a very traditional knife starting from maybe the 16th or 17th century in Nepal. And it was actually something that had a universal utility approach. So this one is actually a mixture between a short axe, so it has the momentum for hacking and so on, but you can also use it for just everyday knife tasks. So it was something that the Nepalis used like all day long. And actually, you would probably be given your first small Kukri when you was a boy or a kid. And then you use it basically every day for all kinds of purposes. So this is how it all sprang up. There is a myth saying that it goes back to the kopis brought in by Alexander the Great, but there's actually no evidence for that. First of all, Alexander never set a foot inside of Nepal, and also that was really early. There is no evidence that it was actually based on this. Basically, I think it's just basically a parallel development. When you want something with great hacking ability, you need to bring the weight forward. And also, you want like a curved blade, because when you hack into something, then this almost automatically gives you a slicing motion, making it just a better knife for the cutting. Yeah, and we will test this later, as I said. Okay, so we established that this knife was very common in Nepal. Now let's go to 1815, where it all started to become a military issue. So in 1815, India belonged to the British, basically, but not to the crown, but to a private company, the British East India Company, which was basically a business. But it was a rather special business because, first of all, they had been given monopoly to really, exploit India, the Indian subcontinent, and that is exactly what they did. And they even had an own army, and that army was actually bigger than the British main royal army at that time. So they had an enormous amount of soldiers, and yes, it was pretty much a private army, but of course it was run just like a proper army. And they also wanted to get Nepal, because actually there was a long border between India and Nepal, over 1,000 kilometers. And exactly, which part belonged to India and which one to Nepal, that was not really certain. So they argued about it, let me put it that way. And there was like small fights between the soldiers on both sides. Since the Nepal side was run by the Gurkhas. So they had all of Nepal, and they wanted to keep it and actually make it bigger, not smaller. So in 1815, the East India Company decided to attack. So simply attack, just with the target to, win all of Nepal, so that they would have a free way to Tibet, where there was other stuff that they wanted. So in any case, they attacked, and they actually attacked some of the fortresses right at the border. And they thought it would be easy going. They would be able to just, chase these goat keepers away within a few days and then own the country. But that was not what happened. What happened, in fact, was that they got kicked there pretty much. So there were fortresses that were manned with just a few hundred, soldiers, and they were able to defend their castle for an awfully long time, killing many East India soldiers. And the main weapon that they used for this was the Kukri. Because basically in 1815 it took you at least 30 seconds to reload a musket, because those were single-shot muzzle-loading guns. So the sidearm was very important, and the British soldiers had bayonets at the end of their muskets, which is fine in the open battlefield, but it's very bad in close quarters. And that's what you get when you fight in Nepal. You find in really narrow valleys, you find in the fortresses, you find in, like wooden territories. So for this blade is actually perfect. So what the fearless Gurkha soldiers did is, they attacked the British from below, ducking underneath the bayonets and then slicing open legs and bellies with this fearsome razor-sharp weapon. And that was so effective that actually the Brits lost a great many soldiers. And in the end, they didn't even win Nepal. They actually got a few of the territories right at the border. And then they basically had to go into peace, contracts. In any case, the British were so impressed by the fighting spirits and the capability of the Gurkhas that they decided to start their own regiments. So they actually actively hired Nepali soldiers to form regiments, Gurkha regiments, fighting for the British. And that's exactly what they did. And so they served in the army of the British East India Company until that whole thing fell apart. So we're now talking 1857. There was like a big uproar. They really had enough. The Indians had enough of the British East India Company. So they revolted, pretty much. Most of the police and most of the soldiers of the regular Indian army, of course at that time working for the British, they actually changed sides and fought against the Brits. But the Gurkhas, not so. The Gurkhas actually had signed a contract, or for them it was a matter of loyalty. So they stuck with the Brits, fighting very bravely for the British side. And then in the end, in 1857, the British Crown had enough and pretty much dismantled the entire East India Company and took over directly. So the British kings and queens became Emperor of India too, and the whole thing, that was an end to the history of the British East India Company. But not the end of the Gurkha regiments, because these people were so effective that the British Crown simply decided to make them a part of the regular British Army, which they still are to this day. So now they used the Gurkhas whenever things got tough. So the Gurkhas fought in the Burmese War. They fought in World War I, lost almost 20,000 people. They fought in World War II. They fought against the Turks in Gallipoli. They fought against the Germans at the Monte Cassino, smashing through the Gustav line. And they would never surrender. For them, their battle cry, literally translated into English, means it's better to die than being a coward. And that's how they fight. And still they carry the Kukri, of course. And they even used the Gurkhas in the Falkland War, where it is said that Argentinian soldiers simply ran away when they heard that they would be attacked by the Gurkhas. That is the reputation of the Gurkha soldier. But believe it or not, funny, because in 1959, when actually the colony ended and India and Pakistan were released into independence, that was still not the end of the Royal Gurkhas, because then the 10 Gurkha regiments were simply split, and the Indian army kept 6 and the other 4 were given to the British, which there still are, so the Royal Gurkha Rifles are still a regular part of the British army. So we now have 2. We have an Indian Gurkha regiments and we have the British Gurkha regiments. Now, but believe it or not, they still are completely recruiting the Nepalis. So you cannot join the Gurkha regiments, not as a regular soldier, when you're not a Nepali, so no Brit can apply, no other, it's not like the French Foreign Legion where everybody can apply. This is strictly for Nepalis. And then a lot of Nepalis want to join the Gurkhas. Actually, every year they recruit maybe 200 to 400 new soldiers, and typically they have more than 20,000 people that want to participate. So less than 1% are typically taken and chosen. The Indian Army recruits a bit more. They also have more active Gurkha soldiers. But the Brits, not so. It's just about 4,000 Gurkhas fighting for the British. In any case, so still they have Kukris. Actually, every Gurkha soldier gets issued 2. One for presentation, and that will be more like this one with a polished handle. In this case, it's buffalo horn. It will be beautiful and really clean. And then they also give them a field one, which is the really tough stuff. So this is not shiny. This is not polished. This is just for raw work, and this is what they use in the field. It's also interesting that up until 2009, when you were enlisted in the Gurkha Royal Rifle Regiments, and you finished your time, you served your 4 years or something, you would not be given permission to stay in the UK. You actually had to go home to Nepal. And of course, they did not give you citizenship. And that only changed in 2009. In 2009, they changed the laws so that now, if you have served in the Gurkhas, then you can stay in the UK, and after a few more years, you can actually get citizenship. But up until then, for almost 200 years, at the end of the time where you served the crown, they would say, thank you very much, and that's the door. Go home and never come back. I think that is quite questionable. It's really colonialism in its purest form, I think. So I'm happy that they eventually changed the laws and now treat these soldiers with respect. In any case, one thing they always did, when you were done serving the crown or serving the Indian Army, you will keep both your Kukris. So those are then your personal possession, and you can take them and you can actually pass them on to your kids and everything, so that you don't have to surrender that. You have to probably give back the gun, definitely give back the gun, but you can keep the Kukri. In any case, they still make these in Nepal. All of them, even the ones for the British Army and for the Indian Army, are made in Nepal, often by small companies. And of course, there's pretty much individual cases, so you wouldn't find 2 that look completely alike. They're all a bit different. But they, of course, have a few things in common. First of all, of course, this curved blade with the heavy weight in the front. Typically a sheath made from leather. Then you get 2 additional knives, and one is actually completely blunt. So this is not a fighting knife. This is typically used for sharpening the main blade and also for a fire starter. And then you got one small utility knife, which is wicked sharp, and this is actually for small tasks. And as you see, the military issue ones now all have belt loops. The original ones were often just a flap, so you could put it into a belt. Just push it in and then tie it. So this is actually typically a presentation decoration one. It has a few other elements that are very typical, like this little notch here, which the purpose is to stop like blood and sap from touching the handle. But also it's a little bit formed, so that it is a religious motive. So with the 3 prongs here. So this has something to do with the Hindu belief. In any case, I have several Kukris in my collection, and I've been using them an awful lot, and some of them are really in poor condition because of that, but they're still fully functional. Let me show you the other ones that I have. So this is the Kailash blade Scourge, and I really like it. I think I reviewed it first time, that must be maybe, 12, 13 years ago. And I love it because it's a modern interpretation of a Kukuri. As you see, the handle is like rosewood and it's shaped completely different. And I like it because it fits my hand like a glove, because I adapted it properly. It came in way too small for my fingers. It has a really, really heavy blade with the belly here in the front. It is also sharp on the backside, which is wicked. It's not like original Kukris don't have that. And as you see, I've been using it a lot. And at some time when my wood shop burned down, it was touched by water, and so it corroded a little bit. So I just had to sand down the blade, which I could have done a better job at that. And maybe one day I'll completely overhaul it. It's still one of my favorite blades, and you can still buy this at the Kailash Blades website. They also sent me another one, which is an even more modern presentation. And it also used it a lot, and it also got rusted in the fire a little bit. So this one is also an interesting design, would you not agree? So this is the Kailash Blade Naut. And as you see, it doesn't have this kind of belly shape, but it adds this weight with this part in the front. So it still has the same balance like a Kukri, but of course it has a more straight edge here, which some people like, I think. The handle is pretty much the same as on the Scorch. So it's very untraditional, but it still clearly is a Nepal-made big knife with the same balance as the Kukuri. Then this is an interpretation designed in Germany by Messer. So this actually, as you see, it's much smaller, but it's not lighter because the blade is from 1 centimeter steel. I mean, look at that. Very, very heavy. This is Odin's toothpick. Still clearly a Kukri, but of course, completely different design. It comes with the Kydex sheath. Very heavy hacking knife, but smaller blade. So it's actually more carry friendly than the other models. And this is one that I actually helped designing. The original idea is not mine though, but I licensed it. There was a guy who presented the idea a long time ago on the Cold Steel forum, just with the animation, like a 2D animation. And I had to track him down and pay him a lot of money for his idea, just because out of fairness, I wasn't obliged to do it. This is a folding Kukuri. As you see, the blade shape is the same as Midgard's, because Midgard's then took over. I gave them a wooden model that actually, this mechanism here was already implemented. And I think it's pretty fascinating because the folding is so nice. You can actually secure this with this locking screw here if you want. Now, of course, this is a toy in comparison because it's much lighter. This is a knife. It's not a Kukuri, really. It's a Kukuri-inspired folding knife. That's how I would call it. But I still like it a lot, and actually it sits really well in the hand. But let's focus a little more on this knife here because we're going to test it. So this is the Himalayan Blades Tinshira Kukuri. It's a really, really long one, and I think that's why I love it so much. Buffalo horn, of course, spring steel. That probably used to be a spring from a Tata truck because that's what they're usually made from. So it's spring steel, 5160 spring steel that had actually proved its worth over Indian roads, millions of them, probably millions of miles. In any case, it's hand forged. Now it typically takes them, I would guess, maybe 15 to 20 hours to make one of these from a spring, from a leaf spring. Now if you keep in mind that this entire knife with the 2 additional knives and the sheath sets you back just 170 euros. I mean, it's dirt cheap. If this would be made by a Western knife maker in this kind of quality, you would probably have to pay at least 500, maybe more, because it's just the work is just so much cheaper in Nepal than it is here, that they're basically all super cheap in comparison. But this is a beautiful knife. I love it. But we still have to take it and do some serious hacking. Okay, first, how do you carry a big knife like this one here? With an oddly shaped blade that is actually not very friendly to be drawn out of its sheath. Well, instinctively I would have said I would do it cross draw. So I would put it on my left side so that I can grab the handle and do it like so. But that's not the traditional way how you carry a Kukri. In fact, I normally carry my knife like this one here. I carry it upside down here. And this is the one that actually comes with the watch as a match set. I love it because it also has this illumination here. So this has tritium lighting, so you can see it in the night really clearly. But of course, that is a puny knife in comparison. It's very easy to carry this one. With this Kukri, it's not that easy. But okay, so what you do is you grab the handle here, you swing this to the front, you grab the sheath with the left hand, then you press the back side of the knife against the sheath a little bit upwards, and then you draw the knife, and then you're ready for action. So you have to press this against the back side of the sheath to not cut through the leather with the edge here. So that's how you do it. And when you put it back, you do the same thing in reverse. So you put it in, you press the back side against the sheath, and then you swing it back to the front. Coconut test. That's a small coconut. Those are really hard, and those are also not super easy to hit. All right. Coconut wasn't exactly super fresh, but look at that super clean cut here. I mean, I didn't hit it right in the middle, but the cutting ability is just outstanding. This is not broken through, this is cut through. That is how well a true Kukri cuts. Wow! Now look at those cut marks in the wood. I mean, it first went through the coconut and then into the wood here. Amazing. Okay, time to split a hardwood log. That's not soft, that's hardwood. It's actually, I think, beech. Wow. Let's see if I can shave a leg. Sure can. But you can really see that this is a blacksmith job. This is not like lasered out or water cut out. And you can see this because the thickness of the blade varies over its length. See, it is very thin here because you want all the weight up front. And it's getting thicker here, and it is the thickest here at the spine where it's absolutely needed for stability. And it thins out towards the end, making the tip super vicious. So typically on a modern blade, they just laser cut it out and then they sharpen the edge, and that's basically it. But that's not on a blade like this. This is not only full tang, of course, but it is also finely hammered in. So this is actually a thing that is completely different, on a completely different level than modern laser cut or water cut blades. You know what I think? I think 170 euros for a blade like this is way too cheap. Actually, you should pay these guys more for their excellent work. This is a fantastic and amazing knife. And of course they have all kinds of other types. You can have the military issue types, which I also like very much. You can have smaller ones, you can have larger ones. They have a huge selection. I put their website down there below for you, and give them some time. I mean, these are handmade, so don't expect Amazon time, next day delivery. But they do their best. I actually think this is one of the most beautiful and most functional knives of my entire collection. I'm very proud of it. And I also learned a lot about the Gurkhas for the research that I had to put in for this video. And I hope you enjoyed it. And I hope you learned something too, because that's it for today. Thanks, and bye-bye.